Hello and welcome to the Success Secret podcast with your host Hussein Talib. I am excited to introduce you to a series of conversations with some of the most successful and inspiring individuals from various industries. My aim is to dive into the stories behind their success and explore the knowledge, strategies, habits, mindsets, and wisdom that have propelled their success. Each episode of the Success Secret podcast will feature a different guest who will share their unique journey, the challenges they faced, and the lessons they have learned along the way. I will also be covering topics from entrepreneurship and innovation to leadership and personal development. Whether you are an inspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business professional, or just someone looking to improve your life, the Success Secret podcast is for you. My goal is to bring you valuable insights and inspiration that will help you achieve your own success in business and life. So get ready to learn and be inspired. The Success Secret podcast starts now. In this episode of the Success Secret podcast, we are going to be talking why podcasting is an unkept secret of passive networking and how to harness podcast and how it can help you solve your marketing budget. Joining me for this episode, Nicole Grinnell. So Nicole is a two-time business owner, founded Mic'd Up Booking, inspired by her profound belief in the power of podcast. Rooted in the family legacy of entrepreneurship, her journey began in 2017 with the Bosun Solutions, balancing family life. She is now a testament of determination, resilience, and a $2 million in revenue success. Committed to empowering small business through podcast, Nicole is not just service provider, but a true believer in their transformative impact. So, Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm glad you are joining me for this episode. So first of all, because this is the Success Secret podcast and you have been a business owner twice, you founded Mic'd Up Booking, and you are in love apparently with podcasts and entrepreneurship and being resilient and have determination. These are the qualities of people who would never give up and look to always strive to do more in their lives and business or their life. So that's very important. What does success means to you, and how do you see certain misconceptions from people around you?
Oh, that's a great question. Success to me really is making sure to have a purpose in whatever we're doing. I tell entrepreneurs a lot, if you're getting into this to have your own schedule or for money, you're going to be sorely disappointed because there's a lot more to it than that. But really, if you have a why and a purpose, I think that really leads your determination. And your ability to find success in other ways other than even just monetarily, but really in that purpose.
Speaking of purpose, do you think that having your business is built and your love for podcasting, and how do you think it could impact businesses and the lives of others? Do you think this is one of the reasons that you are pursuing this type of thing? Because podcasting, there is a lot of things that's involved with podcasting. So how do you see podcasting in general, and how important do you think this area is?
So, in our staffing side of our other company, we saw a lot of small to mid-sized business owners that were really needing to get their message out, have marketing, SEO, and really networking opportunities. And by being a podcast guest, it really did hit on all of those fronts. So I know from being in the business owner seat that we struggle with our time and our financial budgets. And this was a really great way to accomplish both of those with a lot of bang for your buck by really getting your message out and becoming that thought leader of whatever your industry is.
Do you think now, in general, to podcasting, do you think the only best way is to always remain as a, like you mentioned, the guest, being a guest side of this side of the mic, or do you think that each individual who, for example, would be also a good idea or a great option to also have a podcast of their own, or do you think there is two elements and two different things, being a host and being a guest?
I think there's a different time for each. So I think when a business owner is just starting up or maybe trying to build some exposure or their digital presence, doing a guesting side is just a lot more, or I should say a lot less of a time commitment as well as a financial commitment as opposed to launching your own show. But I think there's also a time in business where you are to the place that you want to bring value, you want to connect people, you want to meet other people, and maybe you have the time or resources to host your own show. That's a great time for that too. So I think it really depends on where you are in that stage of business and life. but both are equally important and both equally give the same results. It's just a matter of where you are in that time and financial resource.
That's important. So now, when we are talking about podcasting being or helping solve a problem of marketing budget, when we talk about marketing budget, we mean like, for example, doing some ads and etc. and this type of thing. So how do you think, in your experience and within your business and what you do for clients, how is being a guest on a podcast really helping guests and their business and to eliminate, let's say, or remove maybe the marketing budget? And sometimes these kind of money may be wasted if the ad is not right, if the budget is not right. A lot of things go into ad. That's a different thing and then different beast. But why do you think podcasting is that powerful that can solve the issues of removing marketing budgets?
Yeah, I think that and we went through this ourselves, is there's a lot of things that business owners struggle with in just a print media, where they're really not able to get their story out. And I'll hear this a lot where they'll say, if I'm able to sit down in a room of people, I can talk about my story and it's an easy sales conversion for me, right? Well, how do we do that on a mass scale, right? There's only so many rooms that you can get in. So what I found in podcasting was that allowed you to really amplify that audience. We really, with our guests, we try to bring on and really target who they're looking to be in front of. So, what are other pipelines? Where are other audiences? Where are other connectors living? So you're able to, in your own words, get that word out. And so what I found was that sales cycle was shorter because people had already heard who and what we were about, and they were just ready to get working with us. So that was a big thing. And then also just the time and the expense that it took. So if you're going out and doing online networking, if you are spending Google ads, you're running marketing campaigns, that's a bigger financial commitment to really get some results. I mean, a lot of people will tell you, like, if you want to play the Google Words game or like it costs a lot of money, right? And so to play in that league. So what is a way that small to mid-sized business owners can still have an impact, still have that digital presence, but not nearly for the marketing budget that a lot of those require?
So also, I think podcasting generally shows the authenticity and shows that trustworthiness of that person, right? Of the guest, for example, or the host in, in general. So that's very
Yeah.
important in today's time, that you show authenticity of who you are and what you do, and
Mhm.
being just who you are and how you serve others and adding value to other people, which is like I would say the main purpose of being there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest difference is people want to understand now not just what the service or product is, but what is behind that. What is the purpose? People are drawn to mission-driven companies and products. And so when you're able to, in your own room words, talk about that, it's just like, companies have websites, but where do people go to really see behind the scenes? They go to an Instagram, a Facebook. What's their culture like? Who works there? They want to see that. And so podcasting really allows business owners to draw back that curtain and really let people understand who they would be working with. And I think that's what really draws that direct connection.
Definitely, that's very important. Now, for example, you yourself, like balancing businesses, being a founder of your mic'd up booking, a lot of things. So, how yourself dealing, for example, with this? Like, how do you arrange the best way that you can appear, for example, on certain shows? Like, for example, how many shows do you appear a month, or do you think it is the ideal amount? Let's say, and for how long? Like, is the time frame is 6 months? Because I have seen some like will appear for 6 months and then they will, let's say, pause and start again. And I don't know, how is it? Do you see it from your experience?
Yeah, so I always tell clients that you should go into it with at least 6 months. And even if you want to look at it as like a 6 month sprint, with that 6 months, you're really going to get anywhere from honestly 15 to 25 shows that are going to drop on your behalf. So it's a good way, even if you feel like you can't commit to the year. It's a good way to get a lot of content out that's going to continually drip. It's a good way as a business owner to put in some effort and some time and have consistent content going out on your behalf. So for sure, 6 months, we almost require that as a minimum. Because just like social media, you don't do it for 30 days and then quit and be like, why didn't that work? Right. So you really have to put some consistent effort into it. But I think if a business owner is looking at their time and their finances, 6 months is a great place to start. See what that yields you, and then you can start it again. I go year round. And I have my team booking me about 4 times a month, and that feels like a really good cadence for me. But it all depends on what your schedule looks like.
Eventually, it's something that you can control. When do you want to show up, when you don't, how much
Exactly.
shows you want to be in, how much shows that you want to stop, or whatever it is. That is something that you can, I guess, maybe it's a strategically put out there. So, in a way that is keeps going in a way. So,
Exactly.
your mission is to help small business owner thrive, right? So, what do you think are the best elements or the best things that can benefit podcast guests from being there? Like I'm not talking here about maybe if there is some kind of a book or there is some kind of a,
Mm.
course, other things like maybe a way of communication or some kind of ability improvement or certain things that are related to self improvement or development from being a guest, other than being a monetary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there's so much knowledge that can be gained within podcasts. And I think the thing I really like about podcasts is I'm kind of a person that I don't want to learn from someone who's just teaching me. I want to learn from someone who's been in the trenches. And so when you're in the podcast community, it's typically people that have been in your shoes. And every show has that, right? So whether it's we want to talk to business owners, or we want to talk to thought leaders, or we want to talk to CEOs, whatever that is. So you're kind of getting to find people that have walked in your shoes one way or another and really learn from them. One of my favorite podcasts is How I Built This. So it's all about entrepreneurs and how they started. It's awesome to see how they may have started with one product. And as they thought they had their most amazing business plan, it completely pivoted and threw it out the window and went another way, right? So all those things that we all face in that business owner seat, it's a great way to hear directly from people that have been there themselves, not just sitting in a classroom, right, and teaching you the principles of business, which there's still a time and place for that, right? But I think the podcast community is really that hands-on, and that's what I appreciate about it.
But do you think there are certain things that are negatives in that thing in podcasting, podcast guesting, that could encounter guests and certain experiences that can be bad? Or do you think that this is absolutely the way from your own perspective?
I think the only thing that would be negative, so to speak, is really having the guests or our clients, and we work with them on this, is just coaching them in how to tell their story. A lot of times people will come to us and they think that this is going to be a commercial. We try to coach them on that. It's not a commercial, it's a connection. So just, honing in public speaking tips, and ways of communicating. A lot of people come in and they're like, what do I have to offer? No one wants to hear from me. Well, everyone has a story. Everyone has knowledge that can be gleaned from by others. And so we help our clients with that. So I think just the negative would be just having the confidence, one, to tell your story and your experience, but also how to make it be valuable to the listener, as opposed to feeling like this is a sales pitch, because it's not. And that's not what podcasting is supposed to be.
Yeah. So, for example, if we expand on this, we are talking about in newly podcast guesting guests that are coming new. They would say like to you that what would I offer is something that I am going to say is would be something of value, because they I think it's not these kind of things that uh, they tell you about. And also that there are certain things that you mentioned, stories, which is like generally people are interested in hearing stories, whether it's maybe some bad stories maybe they can learn from, or a good one which they can get inspired from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think every story that you hear of other business owners or anyone in your related field has some type of value or education that you can glean from it, right? And so I think that's really what podcasting provides.
Because it is, as we talked earlier, it's about one of the important things is like authenticity, which is something that we need more of
Yes.
nowadays. And eventually the this type of connection with someone, we let's say at least hear their voice, which is, I would say, this is an important thing, and you do want to share your story or your message, so would align with that. Great. If someone does not Also, they might hear a story and maybe benefit, even get some at least one idea from the episode. So this is the idea of it. Like sometimes it is about even one idea can change things, can shift mindset, can build a business. These kind of things are very important, and yeah, I think it's very great. So throughout your experiences and we're working with other people now, what do you see? Do you see some people, like, for example, or certain things that have done that have taken some kind of advice and did not work out? Like, what is the worst advice you personally received, and what is the worst advice maybe you know of, heard of?
That's a really deep question. Let's see. I think it's not really advice, but probably the worst thing I hear is a little bit what I said at the beginning is when people are set on being an entrepreneur because they're tired of answering to someone and feeling like they're going to be in control. You are a slave to every client that you have. So to think that you are going to do this and you are now magically going to like control or own your universe is so foolish. I can't even begin to explain it. So I think that type of talk or people getting into entrepreneurship because they want to make thousands of dollars and that's just their goal. It is unbelievably grueling and tiring and frustrating. And there's also amazing things about it, right? But if you don't really have like a passion for what you're doing and you're only looking at the dollar signs or the control, you're going to fade out. It's going to fizzle out. It's going to be a very, very hard journey for you. But if you are feeling that desire because it's a passion for you, whether it's a passion for the product, whether it's a passion for helping others, providing opportunities, whatever that looks like, that's what's going to see you through to the end. So I think just the worst advice or the worst things I would hear is if you're going into it with any type of selfish intent, you're going to be so sorely disappointed.
So now, for example, if someone wants to be a guest on a certain show, what things they should look at? Like, are we talking about specific niche or general podcast, or are we talking here we need to be specific to the audience that we're speaking in, or is it better to speak to the general public? In cases of someone who is established and been there, and someone who is, let's say, in the cases and scenarios of someone is starting out and being a podcast, starting as a podcast guest.
I think it's both. So the way that we kind of approach it is that this should be a well-rounded representation of you and your business. So for instance, I will go on shows that are about giving back. I will go on shows about leadership. I will go on shows about women-run businesses. So it's really a great way to tap into networks and networking opportunities on a grander scale than, for instance, like my other company is in staffing, thinking of, well, I'm in staffing, so I should only be on staffing or HR related podcasts. That's not a great way to do podcasts. You want to look at it and go, but where could all of my clients be living? Well, they may be living in entrepreneur podcasts. They may be wanting to look at ways to give back in their business. So I'll go over there. So if a client of ours comes in with an open mind to that, and we're really able to hear about their story, who they are, what their culture is, and then along the way, their service, that yields better results than just trying to stay in your one silo of industry.
So you mentioned two things, like earlier you mentioned passions and you mentioned now networking. So these kinds of things, or these two things, are very important. Like, I would say maybe passion to solve problem is one of the best things that you can have as let's say a business or entrepreneur, or someone who's being a podcast guest, right? And networking is the other thing that you mentioned, which is that it's very important, because sometimes I see personally, how can I connect with other people in the same area as me, or other areas online, for example. Like podcasting is, I think it's one of the ways, or actually maybe the best way to do that and network with other people who would be like in things that are the similar areas as you or different areas as you, because you can have this type of conversation. You can be aligned or not aligned, but either way you will get some kind of acquaintance at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We call it our green room ROI, which is where we really connect with our hosts as well. And we're able to say, hey, Bob, you got to hear my story. I'd love to hear about yours. Are there some referral opportunities that you're hearing? Anyone in your network that you might know needs XYZ, and really trying to build that networking opportunity and that relationship.
That's very important. And as you mentioned, we talked earlier about that. It's like solve the marketing budget, because it's basically generally you would be a guest for free. Sometimes we know there are certain podcasts that charge. I would personally start doing that, but for certain things who or certain people who choose to do so, but generally you would be a guest. There is no basically charge. So we have to look at it from a host perspective, that there are certain things that can change with time, or different things to try out. That's from, for example, from the host perspective, like I am now. But also uh, the guest side is also very important, and they would know or see what is the best, let's say, scenario for them, and they can do it. But eventually it's someone you would know, add into your network. And like it's like even in sales, like sometimes people don't need what you are selling now. So at the same time, people could meet and maybe not, let's say, have certain things or beneficial collaboration at this moment, but maybe in the future it could be a huge benefit in the future.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
What would you recommend people as resources, tools, or books in regards to being a podcast guest, and how to improve their way of doing so?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good books about there about speaking and different individuals who coach on speaking as well. One thing we do even with our company mic'd up is to really coach individuals on that and how to be a good guest and to find that to be fruitful for them. But I think you can honestly throw a rock and learn more about how to be a good guest, how to be a good speaker. But when you're ready to go ahead and dive into that, that's a world that we love to coach our clients on and really get them in front of their audiences that's going to yield that growth for them.
Awesome, awesome. You're doing a very awesome thing, because, as I mentioned, podcasting is a great way to, as we're talking here about podcasting, a great way to communicate with other people, whether they are in the same area or different area as you are. You will get and add people to your network, which is could be, you never know what happens now or in the near future. Certain things going to happen that could be big for the business, either way. So that's amazing. So Nicole, where can people learn more about you and get in touch with you and your website?
Yeah, if they go to mic'dupbooking.com, so it's MICDUP booking.com. And you can reach out on there and learn more about our services, or just reach out to have a call and get to know more about if you feel like this might be a good fit for you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Nicole, for joining me for this episode. It is very important to, I would say, from my opinion, either like it's a good idea to start a podcast, or at least be a guest on podcast, because it gives you, like we are talking here about, you can find more passion for certain things on what you do. You will build some kind of a network. You can build aligned and unaligned, and you will see how it develops over the future, which is very important. And eventually business, in order for any business to grow, and I think you might agree that you need a network, whether it's a people who know you or the people you know. So it goes both ways. In order for any business to grow, it's hard and impossible to grow any type of business, like I would say, solo to a certain point. If someone is looking, of course, as entering a business, being a business owner or entrepreneur, as looking for more cash or money for their bottom line, that's very important in general. But most importantly is you need to serve and add value and be authentic to others, people around you, and the money will flow, right?
Absolutely. I thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me.